In this quick video, I want to share with you how you can customize your Sony a7 series cameras, the settings that I've done, and my favorite one-button press for magic. Let's get started. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. You can save 10% off your portfolio, website, gallery, or store by going to squarespace.com/photorectv. The first thing in this video that I want to do is share with you a couple of ways that you can customize your Sony. So you dive into the menu, and I know Sony gets a lot of crap for their menu. It's not great. But once you've taken the time to kind of set it up, customize it, you really don't have to spend much time digging through. So I'm in the menu. Let's call the little colored bits at the top tabs, and then within those are pages. We want to go to tab 2. I'm working with the Sony a7R III, but all of these features are identical to the a7III, the new a7R IV. We've got a lot of similarities between these cameras. On tab 2, we go to page 8. Custom operations, and there you can find the custom keys for shooting still pictures, shooting video, while you're playback or viewing images, and then of course your function menu setting. Let's dive right into the custom keys. So you have 3 pages in here of buttons that you can assign. First up is the control wheel, whether or not as you turn it that turns ISO, or you can also turn that off so that it does nothing. Now, you might actually want to turn it off so that it does nothing, because I find at times that it's easy to accidentally spin when you're going to change some other setting and then suddenly you're changing your ISO. So I often have that not set. For me, custom button 1 on top right here is my focus magnifier. Now, when you're in single shot focus mode, that will actually allow you to do a really cool zoom in with a crosshairs that you can move around. You can actually press it twice, and now you're in at 12.4 times with the Sony a7R III. It may change. And you can do autofocus, and you get that really nice immediate feedback that exactly what you're focusing on is 1, your target, and 2, is actually in focus. That is pretty powerful. Now, I will say that it worked really well in this well-lit situation. I do find it to struggle in lower light situations at times, and don't try to use this on moving objects. Once you zoom in that much, it's very hard to keep them in frame, keep that crosshairs on them. But that is the focus magnifier, and I've used custom button 1 for that. My custom button 2 sets up the focus mode. This allows me to quickly switch between that single shot and continuous. More and more with the Sony, I do use continuous because of that easy IAF tracking, but because of that focus magnifier, I find myself occasionally going back to AFS. I do not use AFA. Button 3 allows me to easily switch between the drive modes. Button 3 is over here on the left-hand side, and I find that very easy. Custom button 4, it also works as the delete key down here. I have it set so that I can quickly change the monitor brightness between sunny weather and manual. If I'm on a photography trip where I'm doing a lot of astrophotography, I find it very nice to be able to quickly turn down the brightness of the monitor so it's not blinding me at night, and I can keep my night vision and kind of see my composition much more easily. And often during the day in sunny weather, I really like to have the monitor set to sunny weather. It's much brighter in that case. On page 2, first we have the multi-select center button. That is, if you push down this little joystick right here, that will reset focus to center. Now, one of my complaints about the Sony, I have a handful, is that it's really hard at times to see your focus point. If you've chose medium spot or one of the other ones where you are moving it around on the screen, it is gray. It sometimes disappears into the background of whatever you're shooting. And pressing this down, straight down, will recenter it. That's useful. I currently also have my center button on the dial set to be the focus magnifier as well. And then I've got drive mode. As these are labeled, I've left them. So the left will get me into drive mode again. The right button will get me into ISO. Down I don't have set for anything, and I'm fine with that. AEL button allows me to switch back and forth between my animal and human detection as a wildlife photographer, and on many of these workshops I'm switching back and forth between photographing wildlife and photographing our clients capturing the wildlife, and so being able to quickly switch back and forth is something I'm experimenting with. I do hit it more accidentally often than I'd like, but for right now I'm leaving that as is and switching back and forth with that button. My AF on button is my autofocus on, and I do use only back button focus, so I have AF turned off of the shutter. And then we get to the focus hold button, recall custom hold 2. That is these buttons that are out here on the lens. Now, not all of my lenses have it, but I'll show you exactly why this works really well for me in just a second. Just to give you an idea of what you can assign to any one of these buttons though, we've got 23 pages of assignable actions or functions to any one of those buttons. There's a few buttons that it's a little bit more limited, but they've really done a nice job with the amount of customizability that you have available to you in these cameras. If we go back into the menu, and then of course you can change those settings based on what mode you're in, whether you're shooting photos or video. So for instance, when I'm in video, I have my custom button 2 set up to show me the zebras when things are a little bit overexposed. I have my custom button 3 switch easily between autofocus and manual focus. Not all of the lenses I work with have an autofocus or manual focus switch, so it's really nice to have a one button press for that, so that maybe I'm shooting a longer video clip, I don't need the camera refocusing or trying to refocus while I'm doing that, so that works really well. I also have my custom button 4 set to switch between full frame video and that crop video mode. Now I use that in conjunction with the AEL button becoming that clear zoom. I've got a completely separate video about that, I'll link below, but with the Sony a7R III and R4, you have the ability to shoot 4K video at a much higher magnification than whatever your lens. You can actually almost double it. It's pretty impressive. So if you're interested in that, go watch that video down below. I don't have anything customized different for playback, really. Everything is the same except for my C1 has been switched to zoom in for magnification of playback. Here's what I really like about that. That C1 button is always my magnifier. It's my magnifier before I take the picture, and it's my magnifier after I take the picture when I want to check in and make sure that I've nailed focus or I need to check the quality. And custom button 3 is the rating. That's their default setting. I use it only very rarely. It's really hard to make judgments about how good a picture is on the back of this little screen, but there are occasions where I'm like, I've just shot 6 or 7, and I know from composition and sharpness, I've seen that 4th picture was the best. I'll go ahead and give it a little 1 star. Those come straight into Lightroom that way with that 1 star. That's pretty snazzy. Now, I want to go back and show you a couple other things real quick. One is that you can customize the function menu. That is this row, when you press function, this 2-row system of options that appears. You can, of course, customize that to exactly what you need. Here's function upper 1s through 6, uppers, and lower 1 through 6. Set those to things that are going to work for you. And again, a great amount of settings there as well. Now, one more thing, I'm not going to go into it in too much detail because it's pretty straightforward, and that is the My Menu section. You can create additional menus within the menu that allows you to save those frequently accessed items. This is a great place to set up stuff that you can't assign a button to, or maybe don't want to assign a button to, but need with some regularity. Let me show you the coolest thing now. Remember that custom hold button? That is a really neat feature. So of course on the dial you have the 1 and the 2 and the 3 that allow you to set up a bunch of different settings, then save them to those, and when you turn the dial, you're back to shooting. I use many of those for video, either slow-mo video or high-speed video or B-roll. That's mostly how I use those, because I say, oh, I'm about to shoot some B-roll here. Turn the dial, then I start shooting some B-roll. This that I'm about to show you on tab 1, page 4, register custom shoot settings. You've got 3 custom settings that you can come up with. We're going to talk about what I've assigned to number 2. This is very different because you don't do it in the camera. You don't set the camera the way you want as you do for the dials. When you work with the dials 1, 2, or 3, you put the camera into the mode you want, the shutter speed you want, the aperture you want, all of those settings. Then you say save to 1 or save to 2 or save to 3. This is different. This, you come into this setting and you choose in each of these. I want this to be shutter priority. I started using this last year on the Arctic workshop where we were shooting maybe walruses on the beach or landscapes, things that didn't require a very fast shutter speed. And every once in a while we'd have these Arctic terns just whiz by. And I got tired of trying to, switch back and forth. And I came up with a series of settings that were perfect for Arctic terns in flight. Let's just call it birds in flight. And then with one button press, I can recall that, including autofocus on. So this is what I did. Shoot mode, it's shutter priority, so no aperture settings needed. A shutter speed of 1,250. That gives me a nice fast shutter speed that freezes those faster birds in motion. Drive mode is set on continuous shooting, high speed. Exposure compensation, just a tiny bit underexposed. It's going to ignore whatever setting you have on the dial. ISO is set to auto. Metering mode, spot. Continuous autofocus, focus area zone, and AF on. All of these I've set. And you can see, you can just go into each of them and choose what you want. Maybe you want just center if you try to keep the bird in center. And when you're happy with all of those, you register them. So that is registered to custom hold 2. And then if you remember, we go back into the menu, tab 2, page 8 of 9, where we can assign our custom keys when we're photographing. My focus hold button out here on the lens is recall custom hold 2. That means I'm on a beach photographing some walruses lazing about and I see a tern whizzing towards me. I press that button. The camera goes into that mode. You can see where it is hitting that high-speed continuous. Autofocus is dancing around. The shutter speed is there. In this case, it's choosing F9 because I'm photographing directly into a very bright light. And exposure compensation is set to -0.3, even though the dial might be on +2 or -2 for a landscape shot, something completely different. It ignores all of the current settings in the camera and overrides them as long as you're holding down this button. And then, of course, you can just start firing and taking your pictures. Let go that button and it returns to whatever settings you had originally. That is really cool. Now, I'm just using it really for birds in flight. I'm only making use of one of those 3. The other option or other idea I had was maybe you're doing street photography. You've got a nice fast shutter speed to capture those people walking or riding bicycles, but you occasionally want a nice panning shot where it's a little bit slower. So you could set up aperture priority or shutter speed priority again to hit that shutter speed that would be perfect to give you a nice blurry background. Again, high speed continuous shooting and that continuous autofocus. One button takes you instantly to there. So street photography, hey, cool, panning shot, you're ready to go. This is a really, really neat feature. I love it in the Sony, and as I said, I pretty much only use it for birds in flight, but it's worked out really, really well for that. I'd love to know from you, if you're a Sony shooter, any of the Sonys, what is your customization? How do you have it set up? What are you really proud of the way you've kind of developed this? You can leave those in the comments right down below. And thanks Squarespace for their sponsorship of this video. Their new email marketing system tied in with your website makes it unbelievably easy to take your content and share it out with the world. I know, I love the idea that people are gonna come to you, they're gonna come find your content, and they will, but until they really do, it's fantastic to have a way to reach into people's inboxes, and Squarespace's website development tools plus that email marketing campaign system is a fantastic way to do that. You can save 10% off of all of that by going to squarespace.com/photorectv. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram And links to that other video I said, along with some of my favorite Sony content I've produced, are all right down below this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.